You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Armchair Cricket Podcast, a podcast focusing on Test cricket by armchair critics of the game. We are recording this episode on the final day of the second Ashes Test match at Lord's. In fact, we are recording this at lunchtime. We have a lot of things to discuss in this episode, so let me welcome my co-host Ajit so we can get right into it. Hello, Ajit. How's it going?
Hello, Giri. Things are going good. How have you been? How was your holiday?
Well, I was in India, so you cannot really call it a holiday. You know how it is. But yeah, I mean, I welcomed the break, although it made me miss a bit of cricket during that period while I was away. I'm trying my best to catch up with what I've lost. So a lot of things have been going on. How are things going for you, especially your cricket season?
Well, I mean, our season is not going as well as it could be. But, well, I mean, we still have a few things in our control. So we've decided we'll do our best on the field and hope that the rest of the results fall our way. So all I can say is the next 3 to 4 weeks are going to be very interesting. At least the weekends, I'm sure, are going to be very interesting for us.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So shall we start with the first item on the agenda for today?
All right. So before we get into the tests, because those would, require a bit more detailed examination, let's quickly go through the one-day series, the India versus West Indies one-day series that has just been completed. This series has been won by India 2-0. So let's say this, the Indian juggernaut continues to roll on. They took the T20 series and they now have also completed the one-day series victory. So the first one-day was actually rained out. This was also in Florida, but it got rained out. And then the second one, for the second leg, they actually shifted to Port of Spain. So here, the two one-dayers were played, both of them were played in Port of Spain. So if you look at the second ODI, so India batted first and made 279 for 7 thanks to a 120 by Virat Kohli and a very aggressive 71 by Shreyas Iyer. So having done that, they were able to keep West Indies to 210 all out because this was a rain-shortened game. It was only a 46-over game. And they were able to keep West Indies to 210 all out in spite of some good batting by Evan Lewis, who made 65, Nicholas Pooran, who made 42, and a bunch of, starts by Hetmeyer, Chase, Holder, and so on. Bhuvneshwar Kumar took 4 wickets and Shami 2 wickets. And Kuldeep Yadav took 2, even though he was a bit costly. So that was a comfortable victory for India. Chris Gale was back. He scored the required number of runs to be the highest ODI scorer for West Indies. So he overtook Lara to become the highest one-day run scorer for West Indies. I think this was always on his mind, and it was also his 300th one-day international. So it was an important landmark as far as he was concerned. Coming to the third ODI, it looked like it might very well have been his last ODI, at least because he had a special tailor-made shirt, 301 number on his back. And he opened with Evan Lewis in this game, and he made a very aggressive 72 of just 41 balls. Evan Lewis made 43, and then there were again a bunch of contributions down the order, taking West Indies to 240 for 7 in 35 overs. This game was a rain-affected game. India were given a target of 255 from 35 overs, and they made a light work of it, thanks to another Kohli 100 chase masterclass from the master chaser of ODIs. And then Shreyas Iyer again came up with a very, very aggressive 65 of just 41 balls. In fact, when he walked into bat, the match was sort of in balance, but he hit 5 sixes and 3 fours, and basically made sure the match was put to bed. Even though he was out with about 40 runs required, Kedar Jadhav walked in and made sure, kept his keeper company and finished the match off very comfortably. So this gave the series victory to India by 2-0, Virat Kohli being named both the man of the match and man of the series. This Indian team probably is also a bit hurting because of their, unceremonious exit from the World Cup in the semi-finals. Therefore, they are going to be a bit ruthless in the upcoming couple of months. And it also augurs well if you're an Indian fan, especially when with the home test winter coming up. So a lot of tests to look forward to. So, Giri, do you think Chris Gale has played his last ODI match for West Indies, sir?
Well, I think that's a question only he can answer. He has this, habit of walking back on his word, right? So you never know. But I think he has played his last though. It's also not good on the West Indian cricket team or the management if he keeps delaying his exit. If at all he's going to leave, he should make it very clear. But I'm sure he has spoken to his teammates if that was his last game. So let's expect an announcement from him of sorts. But I think he'll still be active in the T20 arena, if not in the international. At the international stage, he will play for those franchises. I think he probably still has one more year, I think. But he's going to be 40, right? How old is he now? Is he 40 already?
No, he's going to be 40. You're right.
Yeah. So, but quite a charismatic personality. So if he does hang up his boots, I think we're going to miss him for sure. So yeah, a great entertainer.
Indeed. Well, now moving on from one entertainer to another. If you were to quickly go to the New Zealand versus Sri Lanka first test, which happened at Galle. So in this game, again, it was a very, entertaining game. And it was almost a very good test match because there was some rain interruptions because it's in the subcontinent and, late summer, this is to be expected. But all in all, a very enticing test match because Sri Lanka played a very good chase to take the test match because in this case, New Zealand also did their bit very well, where I know at the end of the third innings, it looked like New Zealand were the favourites, but they couldn't convert it to a victory. So this test match was played in Galle, and New Zealand won the toss and elected to bat first. Usually at Galle, the first innings average score is about 401. They were very well short of it. They were all out for 249. Kane Williamson had a very low scoring test for a change. Their openers could not do much, but Ross Taylor made 86 and along with Henry Nicholls who made 42. Made sure New Zealand had something on the board, and then Lakmal took 4 wickets to wrap up the tail, and Akila Dhananjaya back in the Test squad took 5 for 80. He in fact took the first 5 wickets to fall. So New Zealand did well to get to 249, but Sri Lanka again there were a lot of interruptions on both the second and the third day, but they got to 267. And at one stage, it looked like, it very well might have been that New Zealand could have gotten a lead because they were 7 down for 161, Sri Lanka, because in spite of some decent top order contributions, so like Kusal Mendes making 53 and then Angelo Matthews making 50 and the skipper Karunaratne making 39, they were 161 for 7. But then Niroshan Dikwella, who made 61, found Lakmal for company and who made 40 basically, and then they took the fight back to the Kiwis and they were able to push the Sri Lankan score beyond the Kiwi score and they were at 267 all out. So for the Kiwis, Ajaz Patel, the left arm spinner, took a 5 for, and then Somerville took 3 wickets and then Trent Bolt took 2. In the third innings, again, New Zealand did not have a very good start with only Tom Latham making 45 in the top 4. And then Henry Nicholls made 26, but then there was this typical late order fight back led by BJ Watling, who's done this many a times, right? So he made 77, and then the rest of the lower order contributed. Santner made 12, Saudi 23. Will Somerville basically made his highest first class score for a 40 not out. Trent Bolt 26, and then Ajaz Patel 14. So they took New Zealand to 285. So this meant, Sri Lanka had a very tough chase on their hands, 268. But what was visible was that there was not a lot of, not a lot of things to be worried about. There were not big patches outside the right-hander or left-hander's stumps, which spinners could exploit, so on. And the pitch was just slowing down. I think Sri Lanka batted really well in the fourth innings. Karunaratne made 122, Thirumanna 64, and then Matthews was 28 not out, while Dhananjaya Silva made 14, and they completed a victory. So it was a very tough chase of 268, but they were able to make short work of it, Giri.
Yeah, indeed. First of all, I'm very happy that Sri Lanka have won this match. This is the second time, right, this year that they have chased down a score of 200 plus.
Indeed.
The other memorable occasion when they did it was against South Africa, with Kushal Perera making that 153 not out, the special innings that we all saw.
Indeed.
And again, his team's captain this time, Karunaratne, doing a wonderful job of posting a century and having that first wicket partnership of 161 runs with Thirumanna. I think that basically broke the New Zealand attack there. I think it's the openers did a tremendous job, which set up the platform for the middle order guys to finish it off. Spare a thought for Dikwella. I think Sri Lankan team really have missed him in the World Cup squad. He was not there. So he makes a comeback to this test squad, and then he makes that very crucial contribution of 61 runs in the lower middle order. And he also scores very quickly compared to the other middle order batsmen. So I think his role is also very important in this side, in this Sri Lankan side. I think I'm even going to say that is a very important cog in this Sri Lankan wheel. Well done to Sri Lanka, and yeah, tough luck for New Zealand. I think New Zealand. Uh, well, I hope they do well in the next test. Though Ken Williamson not firing this time, I think him making a 50 plus score could have changed the outcome of the match. But then again, it is what it is. New Zealand have to come back with a better batting performance. Yeah, Sri Lanka always pull rabbit out of their hats. I think this is a wonderful test side. You can forget about their World Cup performance. I think they were horrible. They had a horrible tournament there in England. But the test team is something else. So I like the way they're doing. I like the way they're playing. I hope they do well when they go abroad as well. They showed it to us in South Africa, and I hope they continue this good form. And I think they have 50 points now, 50 or 60 points for a win in this World Test Championship.
It's 60, I think.
60, yeah. So they have secured 60 points. It's going to be very interesting. Nobody is going to just look at a series result anymore. They will always look at how many points they have gained at the end of every match. So it's fascinating. I really like the idea of this Test Championship.
Indeed, the Test Championships will make it very enticing in the upcoming couple of years, let's say. At least upcoming 18 months, we can let it simmer. And then maybe January of 2021, it all comes to a head because there'll be about 6 months left and maybe 2 or 3 teams will be in the running. It's going to be very interesting. You're absolutely right, because take this New Zealand test, for example. It looked like it was going one way right through, and then suddenly it turned on its head and Sri Lanka were able to do a comfortable chase, because we know chasing 250 plus in the last innings of anywhere, even specifically, is going to be very tough, but they did really well there. As you said, Sri Lanka are able to make so much more out of the limited resources in terms of players they have. This always has to be appreciated. And there is this certain maverick nature to their cricket and their culture around cricket as well. They still don't have a permanent coach or a head coach. Actually, the head coach position is yet to be filled. And I don't know what they're going to do with, the contract they have with Thurasinghe, because he sort of had an ironclad contract with the board, knowing their, let's say, the mercurial nature. They are still able to do well in tests. In one days, they're a bit of a shambles. But under Karunaratne, I get a feeling if he's given full control of this team in all 3 formats, for example, we see that he's very calm and he's able to bring the best out of his players. He has a certain way of thinking and he chooses his players. But I think all in all, it can be very beneficial if this guy is given a run. I think as long as they don't again suddenly mercurially start shifting the players around and again dismiss him as a captain or whatever. Also, another thing, Chandimal had actually made into the squad. So maybe in one of the upcoming tests, we may see him bat. Maybe he may given a middle order role to play, and that would be good as well as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, because I'm sure his time in international cricket is not done as far as Chandimal is concerned. So let's see how that goes. So a lot to look forward to in the New Zealand and Sri Lanka test series. But if you were to go ahead, let's look at the second Ashes test, Giri. So what are your thoughts on this? Maybe you can summarize it for us.
Yeah, what a cracking test match it has been, and what a cracking test series it has been so far. The Ashes, they always bring the best out of both teams, and this is what we all want to see, as purists and Test cricket fans. Ashes always brings the best of both the teams, England and Australia. So let's look at what is happening right now in the second Ashes test being played at Lord's. So Australia won the toss and they decided they were going to field first, which meant England came out to bat, and the opener Jason Roy was dismissed very quickly for a duck by Josh Hazlewood. Rory Burns and Joe Root tried to put on a partnership, but Root was dismissed again, LBW of Hazlewood for 14 runs. Another failure, you have to say, for Joe Root. And then Burns and Joe Denley put on another partnership, a sizable partnership, before Denley was dismissed when the score was 92 runs. So that was the fall of third wicket. And Denley was also out to Hazlewood. And then Rory Burns himself was dismissed off Cummins for a well-made 53 runs. He was looking good, although, he couldn't stay out there for much longer. Jos Buttler, Ben Stokes, these two guys got off to some start, but they couldn't capitalize. They were both out for 12 and 13 runs, respectively. Until Johnny Bairstow and Chris Wokes put on a bit of a rear guard action there. Chris Wokes made 32 runs before he was out, caught behind of Pat Cummins. Johnny Bairstow himself made made 50, you have to say. He made 52 runs before he was out, caught of Nathan Lyon. Jofra Archer and Steve Broad, they couldn't do a lot towards the end, made 12 and 11, and Jack Leach was not out on 6 towards the end, and England were bowled out for 258 runs in 77.1 overs. Amongst the bowlers, the quickies did really well. Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood both got 3 wickets apiece. Peter Siddle was unlucky. I think he had a couple of chances dropped earlier in the innings. He managed to get just 1 wicket. Nathan Lyon bowled very well. He picked up 3 wickets for 68 runs. When Australia came out to bat, they lost David Warner very quickly. He was bowled beautifully of Stuart Broad for 3 runs, so a failure there. Bancroft and Khwaja, they played very patiently before Bancroft was dismissed with a score on 60 runs, and Bancroft himself made 13 runs. Khwaja and Steve Smith got together, but Khwaja was dismissed quite immediately as soon as Smith came out to bat with him. The score was 60 runs, and Khwaja was dismissed for 36 runs. Travis Head, Matthew Wade could not make a big score. They were both out for 7 and 6 respectively. And Steve Smith then had to bat along with Tim Payne and Pat Cummins with the tail as well towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few episodes right there. Some very good passage of play. We'll come to that in a bit. When Steve Smith was batting, Smith, of course, was hit on the neck by Jofra Archer, so he retired hurt and then came out to bat later. But Australia were eventually dismissed for 250 runs, just 8 short of the score made by England. So England happened to gain a lead of 8 runs. Amongst the bowlers, Stuart Broad was very successful. He picked up 4 wickets. Chris Wokes picked up 3 wickets for 61 runs. And Jack Leach bowled very economically, and he picked up the wicket of Nathan Lyon towards the end. But the figures don't seem to say a lot. When you look at the bowling figures of Jofra Archer, 29 overs, 11 maidens, 59 runs, and 2 wickets. But the hostile spell he bowled against Steve Smith and the other batters, I think this will be remembered for a long time. We'll come to that in a bit. England then came out to bat in the second innings, and they're still batting out there while we record this episode. They had a top order collapse with Rory Burns, Jason Roy, Joe Root, and also Denley being dismissed for cheaper scores. Rory Burns made 29 and Joe Denley made 26, but Roy and Root got out to single figures. In fact, Joe Root was out, first ball duck against the bowling of Cummins. And we just read that Joss Butler has been dismissed a few minutes ago off the bowling of Cummins for 31, while Ben is still out there batting with Johnny Bairstow. Ben Stokes is batting on 55. Amongst the Aussie bowlers right now, Pat Cummins has 3 wickets for 27 runs. Hazlewood hasn't got a wicket yet, and so has Nathan Lyon. He hasn't picked up a wicket. But Peter Siddle has got 2 wickets for 22 runs in his 11 overs. So, yeah, I guess you've been following this match as well. And also considering it's a weekend, I think we get to watch 2 days of play here. But I have to add that the first day's play was completely washed down due to rain. I missed that earlier. So it's effectively a 4-day test. So how do you see this progressing? And do you think there's going to be a winner at the end of this match?
I just feel, I think England have just enough runs and enough batting left in the tank to make sure they play almost up to tea. That will make sure there are no, winners, or there are going to be no winners in this test, right? But still, the seriousness of cricket that's on offer is always very compelling because it's an Ashes test. And even though it's only a 4-day game, I think England did well, to get to the score that they did, 258. It did not look to be a big score, but they made it count when it came their turn to bowl, of course. So Khwaja, I felt, are dismissed a bit softly, given that he had made 36 and fought really well. And just then Bancroft had been dismissed. And then, of course, Steven Smith, I think he played a real masterclass. This 92 again, the two played over, let's say, two separate sessions, because one, he played out a lot of hostile bowling, not only from Archer, but also from Ben Stokes, also from Vokes, and Stuart Broad himself had a wonderful length that he was continually, hitting Steven Smith with. So that was a very courageous innings of Steven Smith. I thought you went into it a bit more about how, Steven Smith and Jofra Archer, because I think you saw a lot of it live. What are your thoughts on this?
I was very lucky to happen to catch this live. So, so I was on the couch, watching my television, and then I saw Jofra Archer come out to bowl in the afternoon session, I think, against Steve Smith. And Jofra Archer had warmed up quite nicely. He was bowling in excess of 90 miles an hour, quite comfortably, and the way the action that he has, it doesn't look like he's going to break a sweat when he bowls his delivery. And there were a few deliveries which flew past Steve Smith's helmet, I have to say, and some of them just brushing his forearm. But there was one which caught Steve Smith flush on his arm, on his left arm, in fact, so the leading hand, top hand, and he had to get treatment for that. And you almost heard him scream a bit when the ball hit him on impact.
Yeah.
And you saw it was a bad injury. I think there was a bruise, and then it was taped, and then he wore an arm guard after that. Probably should have done it earlier. So, and he continued to bat. Amazing guy, Steve Smith. A lot of grit, Aussie grit, typical Aussie grit. He continued to bat. And he was looking good, actually. He was looking very comfortable out there. But Jofra Archer at the same time was bowling really well. And there was, I think, one of the other delivery he clocked in excess of 96 miles an hour. This was almost Shoaib Akhtar-like. But, it looked very less dramatic in terms of the way he bowled. But the ball was right there. It was no delivery was wasted. All the bouncers that he bowled, all the pitched up deliveries that he bowled were on target. And I think if you looked at how Johnny Bairstow was keeping, the ball was hitting really hard. I think he was when he caught the ball, it was hitting the keeper's gloves really hard. And Steven Smith is actually a good player of short pitch delivery, having been brought up on Australian soil, right? So you expect that he's able to duck under a ball, or he's able to hook a ball or pull a ball. There was one delivery, I think it was 92 miles an hour, which he tried to duck under, but I think it came off the pitch really, really fast. And if you look at the kind of helmet that Steven Smith wears, it doesn't have that extra padding just above the neck, or just under the, just on the back. After Phil Hughes' unfortunate incident, all batters around the world have been wearing that additional protection, right, on the neck. But Steve Smith doesn't have that protection on his helmet. I was actually a bit surprised that he doesn't have one of those. Right. And he was hit on the right, exactly on the same spot, almost on the same region, I would say, where Phil Hughes was hit. And Phil Hughes was hit by Sean Abbott, I think. Sean Abbott? What was his name? I forgot that Australian guy.
It was Sean Abbott.
Sean Abbott, indeed, yeah. And he's not express pace. He's a good fast medium bowler, but Jofra Archer is express pace. Right, and then the moment the ball hit Steve Smith on the neck, he went down immediately. He was on the ground, and you could hear a scream. And this brought out really, it was an unfortunate incident. But all the Aussie guys, all the Australian dressing room, they were up on their feet. They were really concerned because this was bringing back all those bad memories. But luckily, Steven Smith was responding. And the physio came out immediately, and then as a precautionary measure, he was able to walk back, though. Right. They took him out. They said he needs a break, and I think thumbs up from him as well. So he went back to the dressing room, and I think they did a concussion test, as it is right now, standard protocol.
Yeah.
And it was fine, and he was actually batting with Pat Cummins at the moment, and Peter Siddle joined Cummins. And they were both batting really nicely. I think they had a good partnership, the two bowlers. And then when Peter Siddle was dismissed, everybody was shocked to see that Steve Smith was coming out to bat again. And I mean, this is unbelievable. You cannot. This is just unbelievable. How can a guy who has just been hit on the neck, who was down on the ground, and people, imagining the worst,
right,
he's just out to bat again, and he was retired hurt previously on 80 runs. He was 80 not out. He came out to bat. and he added another 12 runs. He actually even pulled a bouncer, Jofra Archer bouncer for a boundary, and yeah. So it's amazing. Although he was out on 92 runs, trapped leg before off the bowling of Chris Wokes, I believe. He made an unbelievable innings yet again. He has gone a couple of notches up in my rating. To be honest, I think he's a fantastic batsman. He just showed us that it's not just about scoring runs; it's also about doing taking some blows for the team and taking the team to safety as well. If he was out dismissed much earlier, Australia would have lost the lead. I think they would have been facing a lead of 50, 60 runs, and I think that would have been a huge margin in the context of this match.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, what can I say about Steve Smith? Unbelievable. This is one to remember. This is almost like Alan Donald against Mike Atherton. You remember that match?
Yeah.
Of the 90s. This is one to remember. We will hear people talk about this for years to come, and Jofra Archer is making his debut, right? Is making his Test debut, and what an occasion! People were expecting this to happen, but not to Steve Smith, right? So, well, I'm still spellbound, by what I saw yesterday. Unbelievable.
You bring about a good point that with Steven Smith playing this well, he reminds us of some good innings from the yesteryears. That was a really good one, the one you said, where Alan Donald versus Mike Atherton. But another one in the similar era, played by another Aussie, was, if I am not wrong, Steve Waugh once took about 11 body blows, and he batted a whole day to score a 200. This was in that 1995 Test series between Australia and West Indies, where officially, let's say, the leading Test nation of the world was going to be Australia after that. So it was when the West Indian dominance was dying, and he took a whole day out of the game, scored a 200, Steve Waugh, and took a lot of blows on his body from, I think, Ian Bishop, Curtly Ambrose, and Walsh. So another one of those very brave innings, right? And if you go all the way back, also a few more years back or decades back, if you remember what Dennis Lilly and Thompson, when they were at the Pomp, Close and Colin Cowdery called out of retirement to face them up and take 20, 30 minutes one evening and then the next session next morning of a lot of brutal blows to the body and trying to keep England in the Ashes series then in 1975. So there are these real displays of courage. This is just display of human courage, I would say. It has nothing to do with sport, but why we play sport is for these moments where you can actually, if sport were to be the microcosm of life itself, this is actually the real reason why we play sport, to witness these sort of real courageous moments that sports persons are able to display. And a lot of kudos to Steven Smith. You're absolutely right. And one thing that caught me a bit off surprise is how come the Australian Cricket Board lets Steven Smith wear a helmet without that additional attachment for the neck portion, right? I'm assuming every Aussie cricketer it would be mandatory for every Aussie cricketer to wear it, I guess. Because I know some teams make it not mandatory but optional. For example, not all Indian batsmen wear it as well, and they're given the choice to wear it or not wear it. So it's a bit interesting for me. That's one point to take away, but nothing to really take away from the way Steven Smith played. This was Steven Smith for sure. But what are your thoughts on Archer? Let's not forget that it's actually his first Test match. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, what can we say about Archer? I think these are the kinds of fast bowlers that make cricket look good. Because if you look at how the cricket has been progressing, how the game of cricket has been progressing over the last decade or so, it has become so much more in favor of the batsman. I keep saying this every time we talk, right? So I love the way a really tear-away fast bowler bowls. Shoaib Akhtar was one of my favorites. Dale Steyn, who has recently retired, was another favorite of mine. And Jofra Archer is going to be my favorite for the next 5-6 years. I hope he stays injury-free. He just made his debut, I know, but I hope he stays injury-free and continues to, perform for England and gets involved in these kinds of iconic clashes against top batsmen in the world. And I'm also, I would really like to see him bowl well against somebody of the likes of Williamson, Kohli, So yeah, a lot to look forward to from this guy. I'm really happy to see him bowl so well, and I would say onwards and upwards.
Right. It's his first Test, and let's say he's lived up to the promises that was expected of him at the beginning, all the hype that surrounded his debut and so on. But the way he has bowled, if this guy matures into anything that can be expected. He's going to be a very, very good bowler for England in the upcoming years. And for sure, he'll want to test himself against the other members of the Fab Four as well. What you said, Williamson, Kohli. So Root as his teammate, of course. But the other best batsmen out there. So it's going to be a very interesting thing. So assuming that this test is probably going to end in a draw, Giri, what are your thoughts on the rest of the series?
Well, Australia will have a lead of 1-0 at the end of the second test, by the looks of it. And the next 3 test matches will be played at Headingley, Old Trafford, and again at London, the Oval. Headingley can be quite tricky, I have to say. I think it's a bit of a seaming track, as we all know. At Leeds, normally it swings and as well as that it seams. So the fast bowlers will be in the thick of things again. So it can be a short score game as well. I think it can be. It can be. I mean, I'm not sure, and it's going to be September, so it's not going to be as dry as it usually is during July and August. So I have a feeling that the bowlers will come out on top in the next 3 matches. At least in the 2 of them, they will come out on top. And Oval is usually good for the spinners. Has traditionally been good for the spinners as well as for batting. So, and we also what happened last year when India and England played at the Oval. Both Rishabh Pant and KL Rahul made centuries, right? So, yeah. So, looking at the scoreline, it's going to be tricky, but I think Australia will retain the Ashes at the end of the series. What do you say?
Yes, I think Australia will take the Ashes at the end of the series. It will be their first win on English shores. They have not done it in 18 years. And before the series began, I had pipped Australia to be, taking the Ashes back home with them. So it might still come to pass. Unless, in one of the upcoming 2 tests, look, Broad has been in good form. And maybe Archer, he might actually provide to be, 1-2 a pronged attack and with, Vokes also supporting them. You never know. Maybe England can pull one back in Headingley and then with 2 tests left, it might be all to play for. So I'm really hoping it will be a very exciting test match. A test series, of course. But I'm also thinking, Australia will probably take it. They'll edge the series. Right? This brings us to the other discussion point. We just quickly brushed over it. Joe Root's lack of runs this series. What are your thoughts on this, Giri? Has he fallen out of the Fab Four?
Well, has he fallen out of the Fab Four? That's a good question. Because he's batting at number 3, right? Should he bat at number 4? The other 4, right?
Right.
I spent a bit of time looking at how he has been performing, right? In general, in the last 12 months, he has not been batting so well in Test cricket. So if you look at his average, he averages about 31, while his career average in 83 Test matches has been about 48.3, 48, just over 48. And interestingly, if you take his average at the position number 3, probably all through his career, if you look at his whole career, he averages around 38 whenever he has batted at number 3. And while his average stands at 48, if you consider him batting at number 4. So clearly, batting at number 4, the kind of average that he has is more, is closer to his career average, which means, people can say what they want. I think he's still England's best batsman, right? He's their best batsman. And traditionally, a team's best batter or a batsman has been batting at number 4. If you consider Sachin Tendulkar did it for India at number 4. Kane Williamson does it for New Zealand right now. And Australia themselves have Steve Smith batting at number 4, with Khwaja coming in at number 3, right? So is he batting at the right position? And the other question, of course, is has captaincy taken a toll on his batting, right?
Right. I mean, that could be a very relevant point here. Look, maybe ever since he has taken over as a captain, maybe there has been a bit of a, influence on his batting. It can happen. Some people can sort of find it interesting and their averages improve, and some people over a period of time find it grinding down and their averages decrease. So maybe even though he enjoyed it in the initial part of his captaincy stint, as you pointed out, in the last year or so, maybe his averages have been dipping, and it's not a very good thing as far as he's concerned, right? Because if he is indeed the best batter England have in that Test 11, they'll need him to score a bulk of runs every series, if not, every match. That basically means, is it time that he's given a break and somebody like, I don't know, Butler is given the captaincy? They're always saying that this guy is sort of heir apparent as far as the Test match captaincy is concerned, right? One small correction, Giri.
Yeah,
I do remember you saying that Williamson bats at 4, but he bats at 3. He's
yeah,
one of the people who bats at 3, and I
yeah.
think the Fab Four are those 4 people. It's Joe Root, Williamson, Kohli, and Smith, rather than that they bat at 4. But it
Hmm.
can be interpreted in either way for sure.
Yeah, my emotions got the better of me, I have to say. So
No problem.
I got a bit carried away, but
That's a good thing.
yeah.
But yeah, going back to the question, if Joe Root were to be relieved of his captaincy, do you think it'll help his batting?
Hmm.
And who could be the next captain for England then?
I'm a fan of Ben Stokes taking over captaincy because
Stokes.
he's right now their vice captain, right?
Right, right,
Yeah, and he seems to feed off other people's energy as well as his own, right? Ben Stokes is that kind of a character, and he brings a lot of energy out to the field as well.
hmm
I'm not sure how good a tactician he is and how well he can read the game, but why not? Ben Stokes is not that old, right? I think he's 28, probably the right age. Maybe another
hmm
year or so if they can continue with Root and then see
right.
if it's taking a toll on his batting. If his batting is, starts suffering a bit more, if his average keeps dropping, maybe just give him, a free hand and then say choose your position, bat at number 4, be a consultant in the team. I mean, if required, people will go for his advice. Otherwise, just take a step back, enjoy his
mm
batting,
mm
right?
mm
Just
mm.
look at what Steve Smith is doing, right?
Right.
He was batting well even when he was a captain, but now he doesn't have that additional load on his shoulders of the captaincy, and how well he has done, right? He had 2 back-to-back centuries. He almost had a century here at Lords. Yeah, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Ben Stokes, I sort of see Butler as the guy. He's more an establishment man. Ben Stokes is sort of, well, an anarchist, if I may use this term. Also, he's just come back after some bad things that happened in Bristol that evening. And somehow somebody like that might never inherit a captaincy. He might forever be a vice captain, somebody who can take over at a shorter time, but not somebody who will be interested with the captaincy over a longer period. This is my personal thought. And as far as his captaincy now is concerned, as far as his thought process, and this guy looks like a doer rather than a thinker. Usually captains are thinkers. They're
Hmm.
also doers, but it requires that you think on behalf of maybe 10 others, not just yourself. This guy is more like, let's go for it sort of a guy. They once
Hmm.
tried doing it with Flintoff. It did not work out so well. He lost the Ashes final down under and so on.
Hmm.
So I don't somehow see Stokes as the next captain, but it could very well be Butler for me, Joss Butler,
Hmm.
right? That's one thing. But the other thing also is, I mean, if you were to look at it, how about somebody like Broad for a test captain? He's had a lot of experience. Somebody like a transitional captain. Is
Hmm.
that even possible, Stuart Broad?
Could be. I mean, it depends. He's 33 now. I think Stuart Broad. Stuart Broad.
hmm
He may have just
hmm
1 or 2 years at the top of the game. I think he has just made a comeback, of course. But then again, how many years does he have? I'm not really a fan of a fast bowler being a captain, to be honest, because the fast bowlers are not always the starters. They
mm
don't
mm.
always start because they carry a niggle every time. And look at James Anderson, for example. Poor guy, he misses out again. So
mm.
yeah, I mean, talking about Ben Stokes, what do you think about Virat Kohli? How was he when he came out to the international scene, and what kind of a character he was, and how is he right now? So, do you think he's also a thinker? Yeah, but I think it's also important that you have a good background staff or backroom
Mm.
staff. So you need to
Right.
have people who give the captain the right kind of advice.
Mm.
I was I was actually watching this funny clip they played during the lunch break the other day,
hmm
and this was a talk about Bob Willis being the
Mm.
captain of
Mm.
England team. Do you remember the series where they played in Australia?
Right.
And I
Mm.
think it was probably in Adelaide, I think, when England won the toss and they decided to bowl first.
Mm. Mm.
And Bob Willis was a captain then, and then he didn't decide it for himself, apparently. There
Right.
were guys in his team who
Aha.
just told him, you have to do this. We have to bowl first. And he just
Right.
took their word for it, and then he decided they were going to bowl first, and then they were made to suffer by a certain
Mm.
Kepler
Mm.
vessels, right?
Right.
So if you have a captain who is not headstrong, who is not ready to express himself, you can also have, that can also have a lot of consequence on the
Mm.
way the
Mm.
team performs, as well as that the whole thought process works, right? So you need somebody who is also very assertive, and I
Right.
think Ben Stokes is probably on the other side of assertiveness. He's probably far too assertive, to be honest.
Exactly.
But yeah, he might well grow into it. I think maybe another 2 years. They have to let this Root experiment go on for another 2 years, and then probably after that let Root enjoy his batting.
I would think it might come to end sooner, but we'll see. I mean, there are no clear alternatives, is what we find from our discussion, right? So let's see. Let's see how it comes through. For sure, at least for this upcoming couple of tests and maybe upcoming couple of series as well, Joe Root is still the captain, and I think he'll be very keen to win the Ashes back at home and at least win it back from Australia, because they have not lost the Ashes at home for 18 years, right? So they don't want to give that up. So that's one thing. It's going to be an interesting couple of tests. We really hope, it keeps us test match enthusiasts very happy with the sort of results and the play that they bring us.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on, a quick mention to the NL versus UAE T20 series. So there was the fourth T20 that was played in Den Haag. And if you remember, the score was 3-0 to UAE going into this match already. It was a 4-match series. And they swept the series clean. So they beat Netherlands in the fourth T20 as well. It was very unfortunate for one of my favorite teams, Netherlands, that they could only make 150, and that was chased down with 2 balls to spare by UAE. So that meant, UAE took the series 4-0. So it was sort of unexpected. I was hoping to go catch one of these matches live, but because of work and other things, I couldn't really go. So it was a real shame for me. But, it was still, it's a good learning lesson for the Dutch boys. So I think they'll take it forward. They'll take it as learning lesson, a couple of learning lessons in their stride, and they're going to get better for this, right? Speaking of cricket in the Netherlands, it looks like the Euro T20 has been postponed to 2020, Giri. Did you see this?
No, I only read the news, but yeah, it's a shame though. It's really shame. It's really a shame.
Well, I mean, it came just with like 15 days left for the first match. That was really not nice by the organizers. It looks like about 100 players who have been contacted and were about to be offered contracts as such were suddenly left in a lurch, because some people chose this over, for example, the Caribbean Premier League or something, because they were slightly better paying. As a result, some players were not happy at all, is what we get to hear. It looks like they had to take this step because of lack of commitment from the people who had bought the teams. So basically, they were looking for a 4 million investment per team, and this money had to be put together and given to the boards before the tournament began, and they had only about 12 million, and their running costs would run into about 20 million. Therefore, they couldn't go ahead with the tournament. This is the detailed breakdown of why they couldn't go through with it. But the way it was handled was not very nice, because it looks like in the Global T20 that happened previously, it was organized by the same company that offered to organize Euro T20. And this company was behind in payments to players already in Global T20, and 2 teams almost did not take the field. With all of these things happening, it looked like there were a lot of rumors swirling around the final week of Global T20, where some of the players already were saying, I don't think Euro T20 was going to happen because I don't think they can afford to pay us and so on. And it actually unfolded that way. So that's a real pity for me as far as I'm concerned, because usually when 3 cricketing boards are involved and a lot of prestige is at stake, they usually get through and they come through with this, somehow finding a neutral investor. So there were no ticket sales still done. They could not find a broadcasting partner yet. So there were other problems as well that were not visible. So I think cancelling it or postponing it by 1 year seems to be the right decision here, even though some of us who live around this region are going to be a bit disappointed not to get to watch any T20, right? So going ahead, there is the first transgender policy that has been created by the Australian cricket for accepting and playing players from community level, from club level all the way to the top, for players who are going to be who have chosen to be transgender people or who are born as transgender people. So this is a welcome addition. So this is also a very good thing to see that cricket is moving further and trying to also accept these people into the fold. So it's more and more we see the people being accepted to the mainstream, and it's going to be a very good thing going further. Also, another little bit of sad news, sort of we all saw this coming, but it's still a bit sad when it happens. Amla has retired. Did you read this news, Giri?
Yeah, it was going to happen eventually, right? So he had a very bad World Cup as well. It didn't look good. And this was expected in the aftermath. Like Dale Steyn, he also retired. An iconic player, once in a generation player. with a very weird backlift. We all remember that when he started out. Yeah, it's also one of the calmest people around, I think, on the cricket ground. So we're going to miss him for sure. We'll probably talk about it at length in another episode, I think. But yeah, sad to see that. But yeah, I think his time had come, and he knew that better than anybody. So well done to him
Right.
for all the good cricket he entertained us with, and good luck to him in his career or in his life after cricket.
Indeed. So, there are quite a lot of anecdotes we'll store for another day, and it's worth going into it in a bit more detail. Moving on, Russell Domingo, the former South Africa cricket coach, has been appointed as the new Bangladeshi head coach. So, Chandika Atharasinghe, the Sri Lankan, let's say the incumbent Sri Lankan coach, was
Exactly.
also previously Bangladesh's coach. And there were sort of rumors that he might come back to be Bangladesh coach. He was also sort of a fan favorite and a player favorite there. But it looks like maybe at the end, they also had somebody like Mike Hesson and some other people, even Dave Watmore and other people on radar. This guy was actually not mentioned as one of the top 3 candidates. So it came out as a bit of a surprise that he was the guy that was going to be, given a chance to be the coach. So, but nonetheless, it looks like he was the one that was most ready to commit to the time. And he wanted to be there all day, every day for 2 years. And that's something that's very good as far as international coaching goes. So probably it's a good thing. And Bangladesh are very happy to appoint him. Speaking of head coaches, now then, Ravi Shastri has been reappointed as India's coach. What are your thoughts on this, Giri?
Wasn't there a rumor circulating already a week before this appointment that Shastri would be retained in any case? I think he was he was probably the favorite already, and we know the kind of well, I'm not going to say bias. I think the preference that Virat Kohli has. I think Virat Kohli really liked working with Ravi Shastri, and the team seems to be doing well under him as well. So why not give him another shot? Although if you look at the other shortlisted players and the other applicants were people like Robin Singh. But anyway, there were other foreigners like Mike Hesson, Tom Moody. I think these two were also shortlisted. And Moody would bring in the Australian way of coaching, of course. And he has already been successful in IPL, right? Sunrisers. Right. He won a trophy for them. And Mike Hesson was probably one of the longest serving coaches of New Zealand cricket team. And he probably laid the foundation for the team that currently is playing out there in international cricket for New Zealand. So his team probably went to the finals 2 times in the last 2 World Cups. So he also brings with him a reputation. But the committee, which was headed by Kapil Dev, seems to have chosen Ravi Shastri over all these people. Right. Very interesting because, Ravi Shastri, I don't know. I mean, he has been in the cricket administration role. I think he was previously director, right, before he became the coach. So how long has he been? How long has he been associated with Indian cricket?
I think 2014 to 16 was his first stint as a team director. Then Kumble had a year or so. Then he's come back since from 2017, some point in time. Well, he's had a fairly successful run for sure. And look, there is certain amount of value to have the continuity as well. It's not a bad thing. And he's well liked and respected by the players, and he always shows that, and there's always camaraderie and respect between him and the captain Kohli. And he's one of those coaches that believes captain runs the ship and coach is there for support, not the other way around. For example, he's not all that hard a taskmaster is what we come to know. And if you go back to his playing days, he was always a party boy as well himself. So he probably understands what somebody like Hardik Pandya or KL Rahul went through, and he's probably a good guiding hand and like an elder brother there, to sort of guide them through these things. But at the end of the day, one does feel, did they miss an opportunity here to bring a different thought process? So there are both pros and cons when you appoint a foreign coach in a country like India, because we have tried previously somebody like Greg Chappell who had a very abrasive and a very, authoritarian way, and it didn't work. On the other hand, somebody like John Wright, who was more patient, a bit more, he always chose to stay in the background, but he was very effective nonetheless when Ganguly was the captain, right? So we have seen both sides of it. And here you have a Kiwi and an Aussie, respectively, right? In Helsinki. So I would have thought, I think the Indian cricket is now ready for a very, a tactics-based coach and a more figures-driven coach, somebody who's very much into figures and stats and can analyze a lot of churn a lot of numbers. So maybe Hessen is one of those guys. But what you hear about Moody's, he's a bit old school in as much that he has a mind for numbers, he has a mind for stats, but he's still people and skills over what you get to read in a stat sheet, that sort of a person. Either of these approaches could have been very good for us. This is my thought process. And maybe it was time. So look, nothing against Shastri. He's done a good job. The victory in Australia, series victory in Australia is a good point. But nonetheless, he was not able to win for India and along with India the World Cup or win the series, the Test match series in England, Giri.
Yeah, but there were some close matches, right? Even in England, even in South Africa for that matter. But I think the highlight of Shastri's coach tenure was the series win in Australia. And that seems to have I think that must have had some bearing on this decision making. And if the team likes him, why not, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting because, like you said, the team has probably progressed to a stage where they need a different kind of an approach. They can fine tune it. They can fine tune this well-oiled machine that the Indian cricket team is. So let's see. I mean, let me hold my opinion for now and see what happens in the next few matches. And they have a Test series coming up against West Indies, so we'll get to see what his guidance will do for the cricket team now that all the dust has settled down from the World Cup as well as the decision-making process that was taking ages. So let's see. I mean, I for one will be happy to see that. I mean, I'm also a fan of Ravi Shastri. Let's be honest. I mean, I although I'm going to miss his commentary in the commentary box, we have been missing that for the last couple of years. So I was hoping he would come back and provide his voice over there. But let's see. I mean, interesting, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, Kohli likes him, so let's keep it the way it is.
All right, but well, when it comes to his commentary, it's a double-edged sword, I'm sure.
I know. I mean, I did mean it.
Online to hear that he's better suited in the commentary box. He's better suited in the coaching role rather than the commentary box. That would spare some of our listeners' ears, is what they felt. But yeah, that's a discussion for another day. Yeah. All right, going further, let's take a quick look at the trivia section. So the trivia question from the previous episode was, how many times in the history of T20s have maidens been bowled in the last over? So we had one attempt by our friend of the podcast and our occasional co-host Kanna, and he said 3. So his answer of 3 is actually right when you look at international cricket or associate cricket and international cricket. But if you look at all of T20s, I was able to fathom there are 6 entries. So the 6 entries are, there are 3 in IPL. So Jaydev Unadkat in 2017 took a hat-trick and bowled a maiden over in the IPL final, in the IPL match. Then there were 2 other such instances. So one was Irfan Pathan in 2008 and Malinga in 2009, right? So there are 3 instances in IPL. There are 3 international instances. One instance is when Saini bowled it in the first T20 versus West Indies in the recently concluded T20 series, right? Then Singapore's Janak Prakash also bowled a wicket maiden in the 20th over of T20 International versus Qatar, right? This is also very recently. These are the 2 instances. The third instance was when Mohammad Amir in I think 2010, this was all the way back, when he took 3 wickets and there were 5 wickets in that maiden over in the last over when Australia were 191 all out versus Pakistan, right? This was in St. Lucia and this was in the World Cup in 2010, T20 World Cup. So these are the 6 instances that I have come across, but I'm also open to saying that if there are anybody else who would like to point out if there are more instances that we may have missed, for example, BBL or any of the other T20 leagues out there, or even in international matches, I would be more than happy to also take that on board. So we'll keep this question open, but for now the answer is 6, right? Going on to the trivia question of this week, when in the history of Ashes did a bowler take 19 minutes for a warm-up, keeping the new batsman waiting? So apparently, as you can read from it, it's very obvious this may have happened a while back. So this is one for the history buffs. Since Ashes is going on and some quirky things have happened in Ashes so far, we've decided this is the question. So for this one, we'll have to go a few decades back. Let me put it like that. So apparently back in the day, a bowler could take a warm-up. And when a new batsman walked in, this specific bowler took 19 minutes of warm-up simply to keep the new batsman waiting, who was apparently also on debut. So these are more mind games, let's say. And can any of you answer when was this? Is the question. All right. So you could get in touch with us, for example, to give us the answer to this question or share with us your thoughts and comments about our episodes, right? You could write into us using various social media platforms, for example, Twitter at armchair.cricket or at the Facebook page of the podcast, or you could write into us at armchair.cricket@gmail.com, right? So with such a lot of cricket coming up, we also have a couple of interesting guests that will be coming up in our episodes and series coming up later. So we hope you are staying tuned in with us. So having said all that, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from him. Bye bye.
You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.